Hello and welcome to some more Tecko. Today we're going to talk about how Buddhism is war. All religions stem from Buddhism. And if not, if you really want to look at it, maybe even Jainism and Hinduism. But I'm just going to go ahead and just put it all in a nutshell. I'm going to say, using what I know as fun information and true information, is that, well, it's basically war. And it's very stupid. And anyway, I'll just go over this. It's just what I said, and, I want to make it entertaining and fun. But it's one of my goals, is to, when someone's crying, and there's all these boogers and snot, it kind of looks like balls to your face, in math, it's like, and there is no reason to cry, when you're not figuring something out, you know. And so having forced crying, is not a good idea, you know. But anyway, So anyway, what Buddhists really are, in my mind's eye, in the physics world, in the true orange, reality of it all, is that it's like a bunch of people wearing orange, with like probably tiny heads. It doesn't matter what size their head is, but it has to be really small, probably like that. And they're holding these orange banners, on these long poles that are about 10 feet tall, and it's got these huge, it's like those Japanese, post holders, they hold those signs in war, and they walk with it. They're walking and holding some huge flag is what they would be doing, like right now. And they're carrying, a small amount of sediment. They move forwards and, they leave back sediment because their feet are touching the ground, walking. And see that sediment, is basically has to be counted. And see what they're telling you to do is to not count the sediment, that's on the ground. And you have to be able to count that. And that's one of the rules of Buddhism is you cannot count a small amount of sediment on the ground that your feet are touching. And it's the same thing as Christianity and Islam. You're not allowed to count a small amount of sediment on the ground that your feet are touching. That's why, Jesus washed his feet, because he's not allowed to count the sediment. And that is supposed to be like, tangible, you know. So because of that, there's really no purpose for it, since you have to count that small amount of sediment. You have to count it. Everything counts it. Everyone counts it. So you can't have something that doesn't count the small amount of sediment. Obviously, it's still war, and it's something stupid to look at, but the word stupid is very offensive. And that's because it is based on something that is not count sediment. It's just like counted sediment. You have to count sediment. You have to look at your toe. You have to know what's up under there. It's just like feeling up under the roof of a car. Feeling up under something, a huge thing. You have to be able to know what is up under there and how much of that sediment is there. So it is really a description of true evil, which is one counted amount of sediment, which is put back and given to no one. And that's like someone buying something and just putting it back and being truly evil. And just, you can't, but you still can't. You can try to you can still try to put it back. But no matter how truly evil you try to be, you can't do it because you have to count that sediment. You have to count it. Count sediment. It's got to be counted. And so anyway, and then I kind of mapped out like a following path. Like if I was watching this guy start over here, he was born here, and he goes over here and tries this. And then he goes over here, comes back around here and messes around, goes here, goes here, goes here. Kind of like, when you leave yourself a present, or you go to work, Like, yeah, I remember that, and I remember this, and I can come back home, and I remember how I got there and that back, from here to here, and how I came back, and you can't have it where, you can just disappear and then it stops. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, there'd still be, somewhere to go. You can't have where you have a small amount of sediment that is not counted and it just stops. You can't have a live ant bed, that just has nothing in it. It's just, it has to be real. It has to be able to have that counted in the memory part of it. Where they talk about what it was and everything and how he was born and what he did and all that. He is still there. There's still an imprint of him. There's people still around that are like him, that retain what he was like. And it's obvious that, he did do, a war move also. After figuring out that, being Asian is probably, well, anyway, it's refusal to accept the future. Ignorance is what it is based on. You're told you can't know anything scholastic, and they're telling you no. Now, when someone tells you no, when you are arguing with a person, and then we also have another fact, and it's physics, and it's just how if you handle somebody a chain or something of honor, if you give it to them and then you drop it down an infinite crevice, it should not be stopped at some point. When you play a video of you like giving someone something and you hand it to them, it's supposed to be able to drop infinitely in between something, like a butt or in between a cliff or some kind of separation. It's supposed to be something that can go through that area, infinitely. And then you can actually, because if it infinitely goes in that direction, then there is a velocity that is counted. So if I drop something, it has to infinitely go through that. It's got to infinitely go through that, in order for me to get the velocity of it so I can now have it, go in a direction, going down. It would have to have, and see if you give someone something and, it should be of honor and then it's dishonor, because, you can't see that if you don't count sediment too at the same time. And, that's like saying something is honorable when it's not. It's like when someone gives me nicknames that I didn't like when I was in high school. It's the same thing as this. It's like when someone calls you, Brother Journey, it is an insult. It's just like calling me Chico when I was in high school. It was telling me I was somewhere I wasn't supposed to be at. That's what that is. And that's because you didn't count sediment. You can't, or you said you counted sediment, but that doesn't mean that you did it, or something. But it's not about the sediment now. We're just talking about the physics of something that continually is moving, and it's just an obvious, easy, I don't have anything else to say about that. And then we also have smiling and snarling, which is forced laughter equals money. A dog's like, and someone's like, arr. I'm not seeing where both of these are different at all. When someone's like, hi, how are you? It looks like someone's biting the shit out of me, and like, fuck you, I'm gonna kill you, because there's a toleration. You have to deal with people, a lot. And I think we'll figure that out soon, as people are now not happy, since happiness seems to come from the Buddha. It's obviously not him because he's under this huge umbrella of ignorance, just like everyone else is with Christianity and Islam. There's no happiness in that. We're still not realizing how to be evil. How to have hatred and it feel good, or something. Not hatred, but, Confucius is another one. All he does is just spread your legs or move them. It's like, it could be one thing and it could be another. That's all he does. So it's got to be something else besides that too. And but smiling and snoring, it has to have a synchronicity, for sure. It's got to have the fact that you are going to bite something, and that you are also smiling and happy. Because I mean, it has to have the duality. You got to be able to have a note play. It's like hitting a guitar string. It has to have a vibrance. You know, you can't just have smiling and biting. You know, I mean, you can't just have smiling and then just have biting. You know. So that's another thing. And see, all they're telling you how to do basically is, you know, I mean, that's just what it's about. I mean, I don't really have to explain it any further. That's, you know how to navigate, what you see, and that's how I think. That's how you think. That's how you just look at it and then just see the event. That. So, yeah. And, yeah, that would be a good way to act on the video. You know, if you were in survival mode. Doesn't this sound, I mean, it's just that, ADD and all this shit all has to do with, what that has to do with, I'm just saying, for one, it was created, I have a lot more to say. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you what our notebook read. Monasteries are places of power. And I know it doesn't look like much, but the only power it has is to really have something stupid. But I don't want to use the word stupid because it's offensive, and it shouldn't be used as a word anymore. I mean, it's horrible for someone to actually end up being stupid. Because means you can't see, you can't hear, you can't feel, and you can't know what's going on, and you have a body. It's the same term. And that is where that comes from, is a monastery. Bodhi, body, Bodhi tree, body, tree, family, vein, relationship, and I mean, that's it, smiling and snarling. I mean, not, and it's for the kingdom of Pavazahara, or whatever the hell it was called. And if you could just constantly, when you watch someone invent something, you can see what else they could say in their genius, and you can ask them a question, you can have a conversation with them, and I'm very, very sure that was a war move, because it's a guy from a fucking kingdom. I mean, how are you not going to notice that? Just for him to have that little bit of honor, I mean, he'd have to carry out all the actions he can carry out. And, not being able to do that now in my life, I would only have one little small section of leg. But that's just how I'm looking at it, and it's just true. I mean, it's just, you shouldn't have one little thing you do and that's it. There's a lot of other things that are done, and that has to be, definitely, now recognized. This is new information, and speaking. But anyway, Tibet was ruled by the Dalai Lama to prove it. Also, reincarnation does not exist. That is, they're telling you not to reincarnate, and then they put someone up there, that tells you not to do it. And he's obviously, war against it. But also, another thing is that, war has always been there in nature, and it's supposed to be destroyed later, as well as all other religions, because we have the tendency to do bad things, supposedly. But the thing is that's because we're, looking at something that's very warlike. And, we have to defeat it in order for it to be solved. And, I mean, I guess that's one thing I could say. It's stupid. And all it created is public ignorance. Christianity's based on it. That's where they got their monasteries from. And monks. And so was Islam. And, I mean, you just group it all together. I mean, it's still snot. It comes from your body. You're one person. And I know it's snot. But cried snot isn't going to fucking help. I know that it's that excrement, it's that future waste, it's that future stuff, and it's just not accepting the future, and it's not accepting me writing, anything. It's just a bunch of talking by then, but it's, seriously, it needs to be gone, And there's punishment involved the whole time because as humans, when you talk, there is punishment involved. And you can't take a shit in front of someone, in front of any of them, in full disagreement without being wrong while being right at the exact same time. Fully naked and done correctly. Not just in clothes and shit yourself as a baby, but literally, like in front of the person, and they're sitting there telling you, what to do and everything. In physics, in, animal, natural, just, you cannot take a shit in front of the person. You can't piss in front of the person either if you have a counter argument, that is right. It's like saying, over here in this left hand, I have 100 pounds, and in my right hand, I have 0 pounds. And it's saying that my 100 pounds weighs more than your 0 pounds, And that's what I would be saying if I was taking a shit in front of that person or pissing in front of that person, and I'd have to be able to fully take a good shit, I can't have one that has 50% dollars in it and 50% hard work in it. And I don't see any other way to look at it because, that's just like looking at, every other animal, dogs especially. Also, we have fighting slowed down to sex and fetishism. And the punches and all of that, ends up being, gashes and, and that type of stuff. And all of these religions have fighting at the tips of them and altercations at the ends of them and the tips of them. That's little finger extremities that need to be used now and not be religious shit. Shit. And maybe I need to work on that. Of course you need to fucking work on this camera. YouTube. So having a fighting and altercation, is basically what this creates, of course. And it would be sex and fetishism because that gets to the pleasurable part of having just your body, and just, being able to cope with it, just having skin that isn't cracks on Earth. Like actually on Earth. You know what I mean? And, I don't want my face to be the Grand Canyon. Okay? And that shouldn't be private. That should be fucking, like, finished done. Finished done. So, and, so is killing and being killed. We realize that, stabbing somebody is fucking them with your dick. Or, whatever it would be. Obviously it would also be a dick. And, also, all of that stuff, it isn't needed, but I'm just saying, that is what it is. If you are lucky enough or unlucky enough or whatever, you choose it, you chose it, and you know what's happening. You know how good it feels because everyone has privacy. No one has privacy, and everyone has fetishes, And there's no way it's not all going into something. We know that. We have weight, we have metaphorical weight, and we have real or fake. We know what's real calculated weight, real weight. And, living forever is supposed to be really achievable. I believe that if I got my social body right and I could actually, look at all the pixels and everything of everything, I think I could stop aging, and I think I could probably, change a lot of the social ways that just me is looking at the world and how I'm using my body energy. There's a lot to do, with the shaking and movement and where things are, and, you see old people like, and all of this stuff, and this, and just all these little slight movements, and, looking at more than one dimension, but just 3 dimensions, not any more than 4. There is no 4 dimensions, but there's definitely 3 dimensions, and that's all that's needed. There's definitely dimensions, but it has to have bend and stretch and some kind of accruing of it, of the pressure like this, and then it has to have a further point, and it's got to have a smaller point. It's got to have, like 3 velocities, I mean, I know there's a lot of other things you could look at this stuff as. And, you can zone out and, it will be other stuff for then, until you get what you need to know. And then you can finally beat it, and as well as me. I'm sure there's a lot of things about me that are good stuff for now. And then you realize later, after tripping out and looking at it and figure out everything about it, then you figure out you can beat it somehow with it. And then you can make that step with that foot, which everyone does, and it feels great, So, so it's supposed to be, really achievable, not in the art you do or the people or offspring, but really something should be able to view wrinkles as a social issue and problem. And agreeing on having them is a disease, and thinking that people are a disease, is not good. All these stupid ideas. I mean, why talk about something that is like, 1 millisecond short? And that's what I was talking about. Like, when I say the word it, and then it's like, I mean, if I said what I said, though, I mean, you don't have to pay attention to some smaller, even smaller detail that has nothing to do with it. That doesn't help. And that's the thing that I kind of have with Buddhism. So, idle time's constant pressure, and that's why some people have smaller heads. And I'm just looking at, like, the size of people's heads and how that constant pressure, really does, kind of show how that really works. But, I mean, I know that there's got to be something, because, I mean, I have a lot of good information, but it's not about me having a lot of good information. It's about what the information is. I hope to get to that. Yeah, and health, of course, and actually paying attention to how important this is. And, ultimately it'll be defeated and destroyed since it's predicted to be done. Plus Asians traditionally usually do one thing and they go dong 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 dong, and they go the other way. And basically the social things over there are more like disposal. Kind of like a trash can. And it's like staring at something that doesn't work. It's like looking at a light bulb that doesn't work, and you're like, well, if I just sit here and look at this light bulb, I'll get, I'll look at something that doesn't work, and I'll be like, damn, man, this really works. And then, I'll go over and do something, And that's basically what it is, It's like looking at something that doesn't work, and, not really as an example of something good, though, I think we're finished with that part. I mean, I know that, it could, it's a good story and everything, great, wonderful, thank you. But not really. None of that shit actually does it. It doesn't work. But we don't have to be built on antisociality, and sociality, where we, have to just be the worst we can possibly be at something so we will exist, and then, what we create is, the worst we could possibly do, and then if we could do good, then we would be failures because we don't have eternal life. We'd have to realize, that being the worst at something would probably be the only way we could do it. Instead of being, proficient at what we do. I mean, this type of logic is, something I'm battling here. And then we have this crane, and a body is in it. And it's being lifted up by it. It's like you're laying down in the bed and someone is picking you up with a crane. It's going up like that. And see, if you can't count sediment, then you're going to be in a shittier position, if it's war. Because I look at everything as war. And I think that it's a good idea because it has to do with pressure. And, someone who was a war decider on the body crane, would be what someone who's religious would be, or anyone who'd be political. Let's just say religious, and, because saying which one, or, oh, should I side this? It's got these 2 little eyes that look at each other while they talk. It's like, and it's just 2 of them, and they just kind of switch between one or the other because they don't know which one's which. Is it this way or this way? This way or this way? I would pick this way. I'll pick this way. I'll pick this way. I'll pick this way. And it's just in that conversation with yourself. It's unavoidable. It's a physic. And just to be up there in that crane and no sediment, can't count. You can't count your own feet. You can't even count what touched you while you were walking. You have to be able to count what was there. That's how you. It's the natural physics. It's an animal thing. It's what animals do. It's what plants do. They count what they're touching, and the water that's coming through. They feel the dirt that's coming through, and it's just that you were present is important. And you can't have something that's not present. You are part of the physic. You can't just disappear. It's not possible. It's not about you can't disappear. It's about. I know that it was a war move. But and then we have the fact that you add shaking in between these. That's when you have somebody cornered, because see they're going, and and then they get cornered, and they're like, and then, and it has the shaking, and that's when somebody gets cornered. And it's another Buddha, and it's like, I don't like what you're doing, and then that person's like, and see it doesn't do any good, and you can't escape it. And that proves that you can't escape that, because you have to be able to count sediment. Count sediment. And, Mr. Potato Head is not fuckable. And it explains it all. Thank you, and signing out.